So let me record. And again, good morning. We are in chapter 38. We stopped kind of in middle. We talked in the beginning of the chapter. The theme of this chapter is the concept of kavana. Kavana, which means to have the proper intentions, the proper concentration while performing a mitzvah. And you went back and forth. Is the mitzvah in itself as the action, which is most important, or is there a virtue, is there a benefit, is there a priority in also incorporating kavana, proper intention while doing a mitzvah? And he went back and forth because he went from the Tanya perspective, how he explained that the whole purpose of the mitzvah is to elevate the body, the animal soul, which is primarily through the function of the body, versus meditation and intention that's more soul-like. So if the whole purpose of mitzvah is to elevate the body, in a sense, it's not that important. It's actually secondary in halacha, that even if you don't have kavana, if you did the mitzvah without intention, you still performed the mitzvah with a few exceptions like Shema and even Torah study. You can't just read the words, you have to think about what he's saying. But he's going to come here and say, no. In addition, yes, as we said, we learned the two words in Hebrew, lekatchila and bediavad. Lekatchila means as a priority, right? As priority is important to do the mitzvah, just the mitzvah, to give tzedakah, and best is to do it with intention, but bediavad, if you didn't do it with intention, but you still did the mitzvah, you still fulfilled the mitzvah. So again, the word bediavad means, how does he translate it? As a lechatchila, he is the preferable standard, and bediavad is the minimal acceptable standard. So as the preferable standard is to observe the mitzvah with kavanah. But bediavad, minimal, if he did the mitzvah without kavanah, he still fulfilled the mitzvah. So let's go and read again. I think we stopped smack in the middle in section 3. Where I want to go is start again at 436. 436.
Section 3.
Section 3, the hole and the curtain. When we speak here of the soul, the reference is obviously to an animal soul, the nefesh of every living thing, which includes all the animals. And as we have learned, our animal soul is from Klippus Noga, a force which hides God's presence on earth. So if the soul we are speaking of here is from Klippus Noga, and the body is also from Klippus Noga, could there really be a huge difference in the level of divine light and energy? Both of them, after all, emanate from the force which hides God. As we know, there is Klippus Noga, which is the force in the animal soul that hides God, and then there is the klippa, the klippa hatmeyot, the bad klippas. So the question is, how much of a difference is the bad klippa and klippas noga? To clarify this point, Tanya will first explain how God's light is hidden and diminished as it enters klippa noga and thereby the world. What is klippas noga? We said klippa is a shell that covers up God's light. In order for the world to exist, God's light has to be giving it its life force. So, in order for the God's life force to exist and a world that hides God's presence, here comes the process of tzimtzum as covering up or diluting. Not the word diluting is not the right word. Contracting the light. Let's see how he explains it here on the bottom. Even though the body and the soul light is one and the same, he says that both the body and the soul's light suffer equally from the hiding of God's face and filters. Since God's light is first hidden and dimmed, only then is received by them. Since both the body and soul are entities found in this world, and as a whole, this world conceals equally the light and energy from the breath of his mouth, through the hiding of God's face, has upon him, and the round by round downgrade of the chain of worlds, through numerous profound diminishments, called in Kabbalah tzimtzumim of the divine light. Klippas Noga is a force that hides God, making our autonomous existence possible. How could it be powered by God? For this to happen, the divine light in Klippa and Noga must be hidden and dimmed numerous times. It must be downgraded so that its energy can be compatible with Klippa. Also remember the olden times when we traveled to Europe, right? And we have all from Germany. You have different voltage for electricity, right? So what do you have to if you want to use an American electric device, you have to have a converter, not just a change. Today, I think most of the machines are made like automatically. But it used to be you had to buy this big machine, this big box, right? You plug it in, and if you're lucky, it didn't blow up. So just imagine the energy of Hashem is so powerful. In order for it to plug into the world, into the body, it has to be that. This is what symptom comes into place. That's what Klippas Noga's function is. Klippas Noga is actually, in a sense, a blessing for the God's energy to allow to flow in this world. And so continue, this process of hiding and diminishment continues progressively till the divine light has been dimmed so much that it can be received by Klippas Noga to energize the overall infrastructure of this material world. Learned earlier, all objects and living creatures in this world derive their energy either from Klippas Noga, if they are permissible, or from the complete impure Klippas if they're forbidden. So how then can the Tanya state here? A Klippas Noga alone represents the overall infrastructure of this material world, when there are so many forbidden things too, which are not powered by Klippas Noga. There are forbidden things in this world that are powered by the complete impure Klippas. So because Klippas Noga is the energy of all the permissible and ritual pure things in this world. And it is from this Klippas Noga energy and through its agency that energy then flows to impure things, impure Klippas, since as we stated above, Klippas Noga is an intermediary between the holy powers and the impure Klippas. So Klippas Noga represents the overall infrastructure of this material world, because all the divine light energy in essence for this world first passes through it. Whatever energy to complete the impure Klippas need must be sucked from Klippas Noga. So Klippas Noga, the impure energy, takes it from Klippas Noga, and Klippas Noga takes it from Hashem. So the impure energy, it takes its source from Klippas Noga, and Klippas Noga is the filter that hides the face of Hashem. So on top of page 438. So returning to our question, if everything in the physical world is derived from Klippas Noga, which suffers from a hiding of God's face, is there really such a difference between the divine light energy in the body, Klippa, and the animal soul of Klippa? Why do we say that a body without soul is severely lacking in divine energy, if both body and soul suffer from the same formidable eclipse of God's light? So what's the big deal? When I do a mitzvah without kavanah, we said it's like a body without soul. The soul, the animal soul, is also derives its energy from Klippa, not only the body. So it's interesting that he makes a difference between the body and the animal soul, which he calls nefesh. The animal soul, which we think as what? Initially we think is what? It's the evil inclination, that's evil. There's nothing holy about it. But in Tanya says, the animal soul is really Klippas Noga, which is mixed of good. It's the light of Hashem that is very filtered. But then the body itself also comes from Klippas Noga. So why does he make it why does he say there is a difference between the divine light that flows in the body and the divine light that flows in the animal soul? They are both coming from Klippas Noga. So if I do a mitzvah without the animal soul engaged, because even kavana, even having proper intention, that power of intention is from the brain, is from meditation. Where does that come from? How does our brain function that I have the proper intention and focus? That energy from my brain to focus comes not from the neshama, doesn't come from the godly soul. It comes from the animal soul that animates my brain powers. So if I use my body to put on tefillin, for example, or light the candles, and then I say, you know what, that's just the body of the mitzvah. I want to also bring the soul of the mitzvah. I want to have kavana. I want to have the right intention. So now I'll close my eyes and do meditation. So now my animal soul is engaged, not only my body, but ultimately. So he says that's the best way to do a mitzvah. 1 second, they're both in their category of life force, of God life force. They're both in the same category. Bodies from Klippus Noga, and the soul, the animal soul from Klippus Noga. So why is it so important to bring the kavana into place if the whole purpose is that Klippus Noga should do the mitzvah, and Klippus Noga should be elevated to holiness? So just use the body. Who cares about the kavana? To answer the question, Tanya will draw on a subtle but highly important distinction between Hester Panim, hiding of God's face, and Tzimtzum, diminishment of his light. We've encountered these terms before in the Tanya, but until this point, they have been used relatively interchangeably. Now, however, the Tanya points to a significant difference between these two processes in a discussion that will become central to the theme of this chapter. So the word Hester Panim, what's panim? Anybody know what panim means? Sheina punim. What's sheina punim mean? It's a nice face, right? Panim means face. Hester means hidden. The word the Talmud asked, what does the word Esther, like Queen Esther, what does the word Esther mean? Or where is it hinted in Torah? From the word where Hashem says, "Va'anochi asti asti," that I have hidden my face. Esther represents concealment. So when we say Hester Panim, the concealment of Hashem's face, and when we mention the word Tzimtzum, which in Kabbalah means diminishment of the light, so up until now we always used it as the same idea. Here he says there are two different points here between Hester Panim and Tzimtzum. Let's see how he explains it. The principal difference is this: Hester Panim downgrades the quality of the divine light, whereas Tzimtzum diminishes the quantity of the light. So again, there is quantity and there's quality. Hester Panim downgrades the quality of it, and Tzimtzum downgrades the quantity of the light. For example, if you obscured your view of someone's face with a piece of opaque black paper that had a tiny hole in it, it would have achieved Tzimtzum, right? Because you are diminishing the quantity of the light. You're putting a black piece of paper with a little hole. So now from going a lot of light, you're going from a tiny piece of light. The image of a person will be the same quality as before, but there will be much less of the image light coming through the hole. On the other hand, if instead of the paper you use a partially opaque filter or veil without any hole, you would have achieved Hester Panim concealment through a garment. Hester Panim alters the quality of the light because the image is blurred or distorted. So, based on this analogy, he's going to explain the difference in God's energy. So again, if there's a light shining in you, right, and you take a black piece of paper and have one hole, through the hole, you still see the exact same light, same intensity of the light, but it diminished in quantity. Till now, you saw, right, 1 foot by 1 foot. Now you see 1 inch by 1 inch. That's the definition of Hester of Tzimtzum. If, on the other hand, you take a veil take a little blanket and put it over the light completely, right? There's no hole. You cover the whole light with a veil. So there's still light penetrating through the veil. But the light that comes through has diminished in quality, correct? So that is the definition of hestapanim. Hestapanim. By the way, remember that it's only to the recipient that the light has diminished or in quality or quantity. The light in its source hasn't changed. If you put a filter over the light, it doesn't change the light, it changes the recipient that looks at the light. So similar in Hashem's light never changes. It is how Hashem has put certain filters, how we as recipients can absorb that light. So continue. All the divine light and energy entering this world suffer from both hestapanim and tzimtzum. While the degree of hestapanim remains constant, as we just learned, the level of tzimtzumim is subject to significant fluctuation. Hestapanim remains constant because everything in this world comes through the same filter of klipas noga, a garment which downgrades the quality of the light radically, and through which God's presence is only weakly discernible. While the degree of hestapanim remains the same, the level of tzimtzum, the quantity of that low quality light, differs significantly in different objects and species. And the result in the animal soul having a much greater amount of divine light and energy than the body. Now we understand the difference between the animal soul that gives us life and the body. Let me ask you, which one is what? If we said that what? We said that the tzimtzum is a change in quantity, right? And hestapanim is change of quality. So which one is the animal soul? Tzimtzum and hestapanim.
I would say quality.
Okay. So the animal soul still has the most light, more than the body. So the animal soul only went through the process of hestapanim, which means there was a change of quantity, not of quality. The body, on the other hand, went through so many filters that the quality of life has diminished. Let's see how he says it inside.
Hestapanim is the quality. Panim is the quality. Hestapanim is the quality.
Hestapanim is the quality. Right. Hestapanim is the quality. Right. Tzimtzum is quantity. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So let's see how it explains it here again. Let's read it here. It says hestapanim remains constant because everything in this world comes through the same filter of klipas noga. A garment which downgrades the quality of the light radically and through which God's presence is only weakly discernible. While the degree of hestapanim remains the same, the level of tzimtzum, the quantity of that low quality light, differs significantly in different objects and species, and that results in the animal soul having a much greater amount of divine light and energy than the body. Oh, okay. So nevertheless, despite the fact that everything in this world suffers from the same hestapanim of klipas noga, the light, which is the flow of energy that God shines through the filter of this world to provide it with energy, is not the same in all recipients because it differs in the extent of more diminishment in some cases and more manifestations in others. Okay, so I'm sorry, I mixed up. Again, thank you, Abella, for straightening it out. In other words, here's what make it easy. To create a world, the first thing there was Hestapanim, right? Hestapanim means going from one big light, boom. Here, I'm giving you a little slice of it, okay? Now the intensity hasn't changed. It's only in quantity that's changed. Now that quantity shines through, and it goes through different tzimtzumim. I'm mixing up two things. Okay, because sometimes they can be both together. They can be first Hestapanim and then tzimtzum.
Hester Panim is the soul, is the animal soul, right?
Hestapanim is the animal soul, and tzimtzum is the body. Okay, but even there are many in the tzimtzum. There are many levels, there are many diminishments, depending on how many filters you put on. Right, the light can be diminished more and more. Let's see further. 439 on top. For in the soulless physical body, as well as completely motionless object, such as rocks and dust, there's a very diminished light, unparalleled in fact, in the level of tzimtzum. And the energy there is so minuscule that their objects do not even have the power of vegetative growth present in the plant kingdom. While in the plant kingdom, the divine light is not as greatly diminished as it is with motionless objects. The hierarchy of non-living and living organisms, motionless objects, plant, animal, humans, represents a progressively weaker tzimtzum. The higher the life form, the more divine light and energy is present, and the weaker the tzimtzum. So if you look at the world, the more life energy there is, the less of a tzimtzum it went through. Right? So a rock has life in it. Otherwise it wouldn't exist. But that rock has much less light. It went through so many tzimtzum versus the plant kingdom. And then the plant kingdom is below the animal kingdom. And then above the animal kingdom, you have the human kingdom. Generally speaking, the presence of divine light energy in the physical world is divided into 4 levels. What are the 4 levels? Motionless objects, plants, number 2, 3 animals, and 4 humans, corresponding to the 4 letters of God's blessed name. The tetragrammaton, from where the light and energy which flows to them is originally sourced. So the final analysis is the divine light equally eclipsed in the animal soul and the body? And the answer is yes and no. In terms of Hestapanim, it's the same. But in terms of tzimtzum, it's different. So now we're clarifying. It's not a matter, everything goes through Hestapanim and tzimtzum. But it's questions, where do you look, in which category we're looking at? So everything goes through a Hestapanim and tzimtzum, correct? So in terms, if you say, what's the difference between the eclipse of the animal soul versus the body? In terms of Hestapanim, which again, Hestapanim was all together for the whole world to exist. It was one big Hestapanim. The light went from infinite light to a very finite light. So from that perspective, everything comes from that finite light. Body and animal soul are the same, received the same quantity of light. Now it still goes through a process of tzimtzum. That quantity of light has to go through a process of tzimtzum. So without the tzimtzum, just having that Hestapanim, it's still pretty powerful. Now this tzimtzumim, the animal soul is almost stage 1. It gets right away from the high quality light, but the body and anything that is less life, less physical, less life energy, going down from human to animal to the vegetable to the inanimate, it always gets less light through the tzimtzum. filters down, and the light is diminished. In essence, the body in itself, is really an inanimate function. It is, right. A person that's dead is like a rock. Is like a rock. It is what makes a person alive. It's the animal soul and the blood and the cells that animates the body. But without it, it's like a piece of rock. So that's where he explains, in terms of tzimtzum, the light of the animal soul is a lot more of quality, a lot more powerful versus the body. So this is all in the realm of klippus noga. All in the realm of klippus noga. We're not talking about the godly soul. We're talking about klippus noga. In klippus noga, there's a difference between body and the animal soul. And now he's going to explain, when doing a mitzvah, which a mitzvah engages my body, I want to make sure that it's not just my body doing the mitzvah, my animal soul is also engaged. And that's why it's considered like body and soul, because compared to the body, compared to the animal soul, the body is a body, and the animal soul is a soul. We're not referring to the neshama of the godly soul when we're saying soul of the mitzvah. It's a little bit deep over here, but this is interesting, very interesting stuff. Yes. Abella, you're mute. Just 1 second. My son just arrived from the airport. 1 second to pick up. Yeah, pass. Everything okay? Okay, back here. And good morning, Mira. Let's see some who joined, Raya and Sam.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Actually,
Perfect timing. You just landed. You like crash landed in the one of the deepest concepts of all of Tanya.
Amazing.
Yes. So we're bound on 439. So in the final analysis, the question here is again: is the divine light equally eclipsed in the animal soul and the body? And the answer is yes and no. In terms of Hester Panim, it's the same. But in terms of Tzimtzum, it's different. And with this distinction in mind, Tanya will now lead us in the following section to an innovative explanation why a mitzvah without kavanah, without attentiveness, is like a body without soul. Section 4, page 440. The kavanah brings your mitzvah to life. The four tiers of existence, objects, plants, animal, humans, could broadly be divided into two groups. By the way, this is very important when it comes to eating. Eating is an engagement of the human with the other tier of existence, right? So when I eat either from the plants, from the plant kingdom, from the animal kingdom, or even from the inanimate kingdom. You're eating minerals, right? You're eating vegetables. You're eating meat. All those come into play of how we elevate those different tiers. So in general, those four, object, plant, animal, and human, can be divided into two groups. A, non-movers, objects and plants, neither which show overt signs of energetic life, and are like a body without a soul. B, movers, animals and human, which are clearly alive, soulful. On this basis, the statement that a mitzvah without attentiveness, kavanah, is like a body without soul, will now be translated to mean a mitzvah without attentiveness lacks a perceptible divine light, just like non-movers, which have no overt soul quality. Yes, God is present in a mitzvah, devoid of kavanah, but God is present in a rock too. And that doesn't mean that he is felt there. And just as there is no similarity or comparison between the light energy flow into motionless objects and plants, which, like a body without soul, do not show overt signs of energetic life, when contrasted to the light energy flow received by animals and humans, which, like a body with a soul, do show overt signs of energetic life, even though, as we learned above, all four of them have the same light in the terms of hiding of God's face. They all come from Hestabon, and they all share the same filter, which the filter is not. Just as the overt energy of objects flying compared to humans, animals differ radically. Likewise, there is no similarity or comparison at all between A, the light flow of the blessed infinite light, which is God's inner will, without any hiding of God's face, a filter at all, that shines into an entity purely physical component of the practical mitzvahs, the physical being itself, devoid of attentiveness, as well as the physical component of the verbally observed mitzvahs and other verbal expression devoid of attentiveness, which, as mentioned above, are counted as an actual deed. The level of blessing for light in these mindless deeds is minuscule when contrasted to be the superior light flow of the blessing for light, which shines and flows into the attentiveness, accompanying the practical mitzvahs. For the sake of clarity, before we're going to explain this, let's finish it. For the sake of clarity, let's repeat this very long sentence again, without its parenthetical insertion. As just as there's no comparison between A, the light energy flow into motionless objects and plants, when contrasted to B, the light energy flow received by animals and humans, so too, there's no comparison between A, the light flow, the blessed infinite light that shines into the physical component of the mitzvah, in contrast to B, the light flow, the blessed infinite light, which shines into the kavanah accompanying the mitzvah. Frame slightly different, and Tanya argued. The Tanya's argument here could be summed up as follows. You might think that with a mitzvah, since there is no hester panim, there cannot be tzimtzumim either. So there can be different levels of illumination between the mitzvah act and its kavanah. The Tanya tells us no. We see from the spiritual dynamics of this world that hester panim and tzimtzum work independently. But even when you have God's undiluted light in a mitzvah, without hester panim, there can still be radically different levels of illumination depending on tzimtzum, and that all depends on your kavanah. Wow. So let's try to break this down in more simple terms. Good morning, mitzvah. When a person does a mitzvah, we learned in the previous chapter, what happens? What happens is that I'm fulfilling Hashem's will. Hashem's will is the energy of light. The only way I can bring the energy of Hashem's light in a unfiltered way. When I say unfiltered, in a non-hestepanim way. Everything that exists in this world had to go through the hestepanim, had to go through this concealment.
Yeah,
Let's take it. What?
Yeah.
Thank you. You agree. Perfect. If you agree with the Alter Rebbe, you're in good shape. So the idea is as follows. We'll take that analogy, which is not perfect. We have the big light, and I take a black paper and I make one hole in the paper. That's how Hashem created the world. He had this infinite light. He had to kind of limit the light in order to create a world that doesn't get dissolved in the infinite light. So all the energy of the world goes through this hestepanim. Now it comes out of this hestepanim pipe. It had to go many filters for the more life force there is in an object, the less filter there is. Humans have less filters. Animals have a little bit more filters. Trees have more filters. Rocks have even more filters. So when I say a mitzvah, when I do a mitzvah, what gets removed in the process, in a sense, is the black cover, the hestapanim. I get an infinite light connection to the physical object that I do the mitzvah with. What is the physical object I do the mitzvah with? My body. Only my body can perform a mitzvah. My neshama cannot fulfill the mitzvah. Neshama is just pushing my body to do the mitzvah. So when I do the mitzvah, that hestapanim gets removed. That is the power of connecting, that we are finite, can connect with the infinite light. So you get zapped with this powerful light. Now, the question is, how much intensity of that light actually flows in my being? Because yes, I said the hestapanim gets removed, but tzimtzum, the filters do not get removed. The tzimtzum is still here. So now imagine you have a black piece of paper with a hole, and then you have a veil, a see-through veil, right? They're together, but they're independent. When I do a mitzvah, the black piece of paper gets removed. The veil is still here. So there's different veils. My body has the most intense veil. My animal soul is less intense of a veil. So when I do a mitzvah and I don't have the kavanah, I don't have the proper intentions, I don't think, my animal soul is almost asleep. It's very much rock-like. I'm like a robot. I'm just doing the mitzvah. The filter of tzimtzum is still pretty strong. So that's why he says when you do a mitzvah without kavanah, yes, you did the mitzvah, you get the zap from the infinite light, but it's like a dead body. Because that's all you bring into the table. When you do the mitzvah with the animal soul's intention, with the kavanah, you came much closer to the most sensitive filter, not to the very thick filter, and now the light of Hashem that enters into your being is similar to a body that is alive. So what is the mitzvah of akavana? A dead body. What's the mitzvah of akavana? And the life body. I hope I made that as simple as possible. It is just to appreciate the you're getting such an opportunity to get zapped by this infinite light, but don't let it zap at that body. That doesn't have really much of an effect. So yes, the mitzvah is still there, but we want to make it with all the kavanah that I can bring in. So I need to bring my animal soul to the game. Now we didn't even now. So this is kind of the power of kavanah. But the question now is, what is kavanah? We use the word kavanah as intention, as concentration, as meditation, but what is really kavanah? That's the next section here, which will, let's read one more section. Section 5, what is kavanah? Kavanah, of course, is a broad term that can mean many different things. Tanya now clarifies what type of kavanah our discussion refers to. For more on this topic, see note in the next section. Kavanah here meaning that the person is generally attentive, that these mitzvahs acts are being carried out to attach himself to God, through which fulfilling God's will, since God and his will are one. In addition to the practical mitzvah when acts in love, this kavanah is also effective for mitzvahs performed verbally, where there is no substantive act other than moving the lips, as the Tanya will now clarify. And so too, with the kavanah accompanying prayer, the recital of the Shema with blessing before and after, as well as other blessings. For kavanah, doing these activities connects your thoughts and minds with God. Standing the Torah text you're studying or the words of prayer you are saying is not kavanah. It's part of the mitzvah itself. The kavanah is your intent that through understanding the sacred acts, you connect your thoughts and mind with God. So what is kavanah? Not just to know the words that you're studying or that you're doing something, you know what you're doing. It says in Torah that what I have to put on tefillin. Okay, so today I'm not just putting on tefillin like a robot without even thinking what I'm doing. Right? If you ask me 5 minutes later, what did you just do? I don't know. Do it every day. No, I did it because the Torah says I should do it. Okay, so now I have kavanah. It's not kavanah. That's not what's called kavanah. Kavanah, he says, means that when you do the mitzvah, you have meditation, that through this mitzvah, you're fulfilling Hashem's will. And just like Hashem's will and Hashem's being are one, it's not two separate things. Unlike humans, where humans have, I am who I am, and I have a will. Two separate things. Hashem and his will are one. And if I do the mitzvah, I'm connecting with the oneness of Hashem through putting on tefillin, through lighting the candles. That is the kavanah, the very basic kavanah that he's talking about. All right, my friends, any questions? We'll stop here. Any questions on this topic?
A lot.
Lots of questions.
That's good. Questions are good. Even if you don't get the answers, questions is always important. Yes,
So if we help somebody because we just feel that people need help, so we do it with animal soul, or
if
if we
if
do something helping somebody because
Yeah.
we feel that this person needs help.
Yeah.
So we do this with animal soul, or we do this with Havana, or how it is?
Okay, good question. Excellent question. So the question is, if you did a mitzvah, you're helping somebody because they need help, right? That's your intention, which is most times the reason. Most times that's the motivation, right? The motivation is you want to help when you feel there is a need for the help, which is correct. Now, on a more spiritual dimension, that Tanya challenged us to go a little bit deeper. To when I help another person, I'm helping because I want to help. When I say I want to help, who is the I? Who's the I? Is it my animal soul or is it my godly soul? So most times we think it's our godly soul, but most of the time it's actually our animal soul, which is actually what we need to do. It's not the neshama does not need to come down to this world to do a mitzvah. It's the animal soul that came to this world to do a mitzvah. However, our animal soul, in a sense, is selfish, which means it wants to feel good with itself by performing a mitzvah. Question is feeling good about yourself doing a mitzvah, is that kavanah? Is that the right kavanah? And the answer is not according to what Tanya says here. Meaning, it's perfectly okay, and we should encourage that you should feel good doing the mitzvah. But ultimately, you're doing the mitzvah still because it either feels good or it even feels it's the right thing to do. But deeper than that is that when I do a mitzvah and I'm helping the other person, I'm fulfilling my whole purpose why I'm here on this earth. I am actually connecting with Hashem, becoming his agent as being one with Hashem by me doing this mitzvah. So why is that important? Because the times where it doesn't feel good to do a mitzvah, are you still going to do the mitzvah? The times where you feel I'm not in the mood, I don't see the joy of doing the mitzvah, do you still do the mitzvah? So if you say, as long as I'm excited, as long as I love doing the mitzvah, I'll do it. But the moment I don't like it or I don't understand it, I'm out. That's where you're lacking kavanah. That's where you're lacking proper kavanah. Because if it's about the will of Hashem that I have to do, like a servant like a soldier in the army, doesn't serve when it feels good. Of course, it's great to motivate soldiers, right? You want to motivate them. You want to get them excited. But the test is, I'm going to do it even if it's hard. So Kavanah helps us to do the mitzvah in the most deepest way, where I'm doing it because Hashem asked me to do it. And through that, my soul, my animal soul, becomes one with Hashem. It's not easy. It's not easy. And some people say, like, this is such a high calling. Why even go there? Like, let's try everybody. Just do mitzvahs that you like, mitzvahs that you understand. And in life, we know, and that's really, in a sense, a secret to Jewish survival and Jewish continuity. Our Bubbies, our Yiddish mamas knew that Yiddishkeit was not about when it's comfortable or when it's just joyous. Yiddishkeit is day in and day out, when it's challenging to be there and to do it. And if you have that foundation of proper kavanah, there's continuity. You know that you'll do it when it's not easy.
But it's a little more concrete. So if we do something that we see that this person needs help, don't think about ourselves. Don't think about high about God. Just because person needs this, and we feel that we need help him without anything about myself. So it's still,
yes, that's true.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be your God relationship should not be the only motivation or the only factor in helping somebody else, and in the process you're losing that sensitivity to the other person, where he's saying, like, I don't care about the other person so much. If he needs it, doesn't need it. I only care about God, right? Is that your question?
no, I think about person. I think just no me, just everybody. So we think that we need help. This person needs help, and we feel bad about this person. That we need help. Not thinking about, oh, how I'm good, how I'm nice. Just doing because it needs of other person.
Right.
I don't think that we do something that it's Havana. It's
Here's a formula that I think works. If you think about that you're partners in creation, that we're Hashem's partner in this world, then try to think like Hashem thinks. And try to think how Hashem takes care of his people. And when we say Hashem takes care of his people, is that you were put in this world to be Hashem's agent, to take care of the people. Not so much what am I gaining out of this relationship between me and Hashem. Right now, you imagine you are Hashem and you're being called to do it. So you've got to be there for that person fully. That's who Hashem is. And you have the power. I talked on Shabbos about parenting. We had Father's Day yesterday. We spoke about Jewish mothers, Jewish fathers. Each one has their own role. I said something. I was studying in Hasidic teaching that when we become partners, in fact, Hashem made us partners in creation, and especially parents are partners. We're partners with Hashem in bringing our children to this world, and to give them directions and education. What is a partner? It's not a in most relationship with Hashem, it refers to like a king to its servants, right? King servant is different than a partnership. A business partnership is different than having a boss and a worker. Most times we think when we daven, it's like I am Hashem's servant and I connect to the big boss up there. When it comes to education, your partners, like business partner. What are business partners? You have accountability. You have accountability to the other partner. But so we have an obligation, we have responsibility, we have accountability to give to Hashem. But on the flip side, because we're partners, that means God gives us his powers into us. That means we have infinite powers in bringing our children to this world. That means we have infinite power to educate our children. That means we have infinite patience for children. That means also when you're helping another person think about the same idea, you are now, in a sense, like a parent relationship with Hashem and your partners, and Hashem gave you the power to help that person. And you don't help children conditionally when things are comfortable or things make sense. You got to be there for the child fully. L'chaim. A lot to think about.
I have two quick questions. Can I ask?
Yes.
When we say that soul comes to the earth at different levels, we're not the same. Everyone is different. We're talking about different levels of godly soul, and animal soul is all the same, or also animal soul has different levels?
And I think
Development.
I think it's mainly in the animal soul that's different, because godly soul is it's that, imagine the light on the other side, right? Without the filter. It's just the light.
It's
It's
my
all part of Hashem. And so the way I'm sensing my neshama, the way my animal soul has the relationship with my godly soul, is a process of different filters. There's a lot of filters in between. So your question is the different levels of souls is primarily, according to Tanya, perhaps, as we develop this idea, is more in the animal soul. Now, mentioned, he says the word nefesh, right? The nefesh. So there is in a sense a certain interlockness between the godly soul and the animal soul in the lowest level of the godly soul, called nefesh. So, and there, everybody is different.
It's nefesh level.
In nefesh, correct. What's your second question?
Another question is on page 439. In the middle, it says, generally speaking, the four levels, the physical world is divided. It corresponds to 4 letters of God, Yod Kei Vav Hei. Is that, can you elaborate a little bit on that, how it corresponds?
So the letter Yud is the first letter, refers to the human kingdom. And the letter Vav, letter Hey is for the animal kingdom, Vav is for the plant kingdom, and Hey is for the inanimate. In reference in Kabbalah, the Yud is the smallest of all letters because it's considered the letter of Bitul. The letter of that is completely nullified in the light of Hashem. And then the Hey, for example, has an opening in between. It has it's Chachma on the right side, Bina on top, and then Das on the left side. But there's an entrance. There's an entrance that goes in. But how that connects to the animal specifically, because within the human kingdom, everything comes from 4 letters, the interchange. I don't have right now the answer to that. You can look it up.
Okay, thank you.
All right, yes, Ulf.
So my question was, for example, if you compare a person who is in a good condition and doing fine, and another person who is kind of very depressive or is depressive, it seems like there is like a different level of light in the people. So it could be kind of, there is a little bit more tzimtzum to the person who is depressive.
Yes, we all go through different tzimtzumim every single day, but tzimtzum is healthy as well. If we don't, there are people who don't have enough filters, right? And as you know, you're in psychology. You have people who have too much intensity, and people have not enough intensity. So too much there got to be a certain balance, and perhaps the idea of kavana is really a play of inserting the proper filters in our day-to-day life. So meditation, wake up in the morning, say Modeh Ani, sets the tone for the right filter, so I can activate those infinite lights that come upon me, that I can filter them in the right direction. In a person who is depressed, there are a lot of filters sitting on them. There's a lot of heavy stuff going there, and our job is to help either to remove those or to interchange them with healthy filters. But it's very much, everything is very much interconnected. I was talking on Shabbos that Miriam, Moshe's brother, when she died, the water supply stopped. And it says the manna, which was the bread from heaven, was given to the Jews in honor of Moses, and the water in honor of Miriam. I said the difference between bread and water. Bread is like a nutrient. Water is not a nutrient, but water hydrates. Without water, no nutrient can come into our bodies. Correct. So Moshe represents the teaching, which is like food, and the Miriam represents the water that hydrates and brings the food to our bodies. You can have teachings, you can have very, very special teachings, but if you don't know how to apply them in life, you don't know how to bring the warmth and to take it apart in practicality, which is what our mothers and typical Yiddish mamas have taught us more than the rabbis. That's where Miriam comes in. That's where Moshe comes in. I'll finish with a story. One of the great scholars that lived in Israel that came out of the war was his name Rabbi Kahaneman. He built a beautiful yeshiva in Israel after the war. He went around the world raising money because he wanted to rebuild a yeshiva that was on the standard, on the academic standard, like pre-war. Pre-war in general, Lithuania, Eastern Europe had the highest standard of Talmudic studies. And he raised a lot of money, and he built this magnificent yeshiva still in Bnei Brak. And at the grand opening, he said that he gives tribute to this yeshiva to his mother. His mother. They asked him why the mother. Your father was one of the great rabbis of Lithuania. He says, "You're right. My father was he worked in the shul as a shamash, somebody who cleans the shul, so he can always learn Torah, and that's how we got all the Torah learned from him." Well, let me tell you about my mother. We were so poor in Lithuania that we had to go to cheder. We were 4 boys in the family who only owned 1 set of boots. My mother would every morning put on the boots on the first child, walk the child through the snow to the cheder, take off the boots, walk back home, put on the second child, bring it to the cheder, third child, and says that's the learn. So my father taught us a lot of learning, but without my mother, there would be no continuity. So that's the in a sense, the body and the soul that come together. Make it a great week. Again, those who came late, I am not sure about next week because I'm running a summer camp. Maybe we'll just bring the kids into the Tanya class. I think that'd be fun. And they could definitely teach us a lot more. So let's just tentatively, we'll keep it on and then just check the WhatsApp on the updates. We'll love to continue the conversation. Make it a great week. All the best.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good luck with that.
Thank you very much.